In 2008, the world was on fire.
Back at this day in history, back in 2008, when Lehman Brothers, the fourth largest U.S. investment bank, became the biggest bankruptcy filing.
Lehman Brothers had collapsed, the housing market was a crater, and in Santa Clara, a company called NVIDIA was in a terminal freefall. Their stock had plummeted over 85%, crashing from a high of nearly $1, split-adjusted, to just 15 cents. To the outside world, NVIDIA was a niche player in a dying toy industry, video games, that had just made the most expensive mistake in the history of silicon. That mistake was called CUDA. While we recently saw in the $60 billion crash of Boeing how a legendary empire sold its engineering soul to satisfy the short-term greed of accountants, NVIDIA was doing the exact opposite. Their CEO, Jensen Huang, was pouring billions into a software layer that almost no one wanted to use. Wall Street called it a billion-dollar hallucination. They demanded he cut costs, return cash to shareholders, and focus on the quarterly reports. But Jensen Huang wasn't looking at spreadsheets. He was looking at the fundamental physics of computing. This is the story of how NVIDIA bet the entire house on a future that literally didn't exist, and how that $10 billion gamble eventually triggered a $1.5 trillion revolution. Every empire has a boathouse or a garage, but NVIDIA's was a booth at a Denny's in 1993. 3 engineers, Jensen Huang, Chris Melikowski, and Curtis Preem, sat there scrubbing imaginary pans and mapping out a company that would rethink what computers could do. They started with a mere $40,000 in the bank, their entire life savings. Their target, the computationally frivolous world of video games. At the time, the CPU was king, a general-purpose hammer used for every problem. But Jensen realized if you could build a chip to handle the massive parallel math of 3D graphics, therefore you could eventually solve any complex math problem on Earth. By 1999, they invented the GPU. They were the darlings of the gaming world. But there was a conflict. Jensen knew that being just a gaming company was a burning platform. If Intel or AMD ever integrated graphics into their main processors, NVIDIA would be deleted overnight. In 2006, Jensen Huang made the move that nearly incinerated the company. He announced CUDA, a software model that allowed a graphics card to be used for things that weren't graphics. This wasn't just a software update, it was an architectural pivot that required a silicon tax. Every single chip NVIDIA shipped after 2006, from the cheapest home card to the most expensive workstation, had to carry the hardware overhead of CUDA compatibility. Transistors that could have made games run faster were instead dedicated to general-purpose math features that 99% of customers didn't even know existed. For 5 straight years, CUDA was a financial disaster. It generated almost zero revenue while consuming billions in R&D. NVIDIA's R&D intensity stayed between 20 and 30% of their revenue during the height of the financial crisis. Contrast that with the $60 billion crash of Boeing, where leadership slashed R&D to just 2% of sales to fund $41 billion in stock buybacks. Wall Street was begging Jensen to follow the Boeing blueprint. They wanted lean management. Instead, Jensen told his team they were always 30 days from going out of business, not to cause panic, but to ensure they never stopped building the bridge to the future. For 6 years, NVIDIA stood on that bridge alone, waiting for the world to catch up. Then, in 2012, the Big Bang happened.
In 2012, when this all first happened, AlexNet did something remarkable.
A graduate student named Alex Krzyzewski at the University of Toronto was trying to win the ImageNet Challenge, the world's most difficult visual recognition contest. Most researchers were using handcrafted manual features to teach computers to see. Krzyzewski did something different. He took 2 off-the-shelf NVIDIA GTX 580 gaming cards and used CUDA to train a deep neural neural network called AlexNet. The result was an unequivocal turning point in history. AlexNet didn't just win, it crushed the world's best researchers with a top 5 error rate of 15.3%, nearly 11% better than the runner-up. Suddenly, every tech giant from Google to Microsoft realized the useless features NVIDIA had been forcing into their chips for 6 years were the only keys to unlocking artificial intelligence. NVIDIA didn't just happen to be there. They were the only ones who had spent $10 billion preparing the ground. Why hasn't the competition caught up? Because NVIDIA didn't just build a better chip, they built a moat made of code. Because Jensen forced CUDA onto every chip for a decade, an entire generation of researchers grew up learning only one way to code, the NVIDIA way. Today, NVIDIA's GPUs are used in 97% of AI learning systems worldwide. Switching to a competitor like AMD isn't just about buying new hardware. It requires rewriting millions of lines of code. This is the value loop that we saw fail in our deep dive into the $150 billion freefall of Volkswagen. Volkswagen tried to build a software unit called Cariad, but they didn't give the engineers the power to override the suits. They were a hardware company trying to learn software. NVIDIA, however, is a software company that happens to build its own silicon. In fact, 75% of NVIDIA's employees are software engineers. Success in the AI era requires a radical new operating system for a company. Jensen Huang's management style is a nightmare for a traditional MBA. He maintains 60 direct reports. Why? Because he believes the CEO should be at the top of the information pyramid, with the fewest possible layers between them and the technical ground truth. He has no one-on-one meetings and no 5-year plans. He believes the world is a living, breathing thing that changes too fast for periodic planning. If you want to understand why they're winning, look at the top 5 emails Jensen reads each morning. Hundreds of direct updates from the floor, bypassing the layers of middle management that strangled the innovation out of Boeing and Volkswagen. NVIDIA proves that a company's product is only as good as its organization. If you find these deep dives into the guts of global empires valuable, subscribe to Billion Lifelines. It helps us continue to wire together the truth behind these trillion-dollar stories. Today, NVIDIA is no longer just a chip company. They're building AI factories, massive supercomputers designed to generate tokens of intelligence. Jensen Huang is already looking past the current boom. He's identified the 4 waves of AI: perception, generation, agentic AI, or reasoning, and finally, physical AI, otherwise known as robotics. While Boeing is struggling to find its soul on the factory floor, and Volkswagen is fighting a $150 billion lie, NVIDIA is building the robots that will eventually staff those factories. They're moving 100 times faster than Moore's Law, reducing the energy and cost of AI by 100x every 2 years. So what is the ultimate takeaway from the $1.5 trillion gamble? It is that safe is often the most dangerous thing you can be. If NVIDIA had stayed a safe gaming company, they would be a historical footnote today. By daring to be wrong for 10 years,
as well as being one of the most profitable.
NVIDIA's done it again, the chip giant blowing past analyst expectations in its strong fiscal first quarter. Data center revenue alone soaring by 427%.
They became essential for the next 50.
Jensen is here, of course, the CEO of NVIDIA. This is the clear winner of every winner.
Engineering is the soul. When you treat it as a cost center, like Boeing did, you lose the ability to build things that work. Radical transparency, flatten the hierarchy. Information entropy is the silent killer of big companies. Bet on physics, not trends. Trends are for spreadsheets. Physics is for empires.
It is a creation of 3 engineers Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, and Curtis R. Preem.
NVIDIA proved that the courage to be wrong for 10 years is the only way to eventually own it. If you want to see what happens when that courage is replaced by deception, watch our video on the $150 billion freefall of Volkswagen. Or if you want to see how the suits can ground an entire industry, check out our report on Boeing. What do you think? Is NVIDIA's lead unassailable, or are we witnessing the greatest bubble in history? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We actually read them. Subscribe to Billion Lifelines. We'll see you in the next one.